I also have to take rest right after this, because for me, this is 7:30 to 9 o'clock at night. Okay, I think that's, let me see, anything else? It's expected that you will attend every week. If you can't, please inform not me, but inform the managers. And I see that we're recording this, so you can probably get a recording and listen to it. But this is a serious commitment, but a wonderful one for so many reasons. One reason, we're coming in touch with Prabhupada's teachings. We're associating with Prabhupada. One time, Srila Prabhupada said that reading his books is direct association. He said it's no difference between Arjuna hearing the Bhagavad Gita thousands of years ago and us reading Krishna's teachings to Arjuna presently. And in the 9th chapter of the first canto of the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada is talking about the disappearance of the passing away of Bhishma Dev. And if we know that pastime, Bhishma Dev was literally looking right at the face of Krishna as he was saying his last prayers and leaving this world. And then Prabhupada writes that the same benediction that was available to Bhishma Dev of seeing the Lord face to face as he was leaving this world is available to anyone who hears the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we say that there's 5 most potent items of devotional service: chanting Hare Krishna, the name of Krishna and Krishna are identical. To live in a holy place, and Mayapur and Vrindavan are identical with the Lord. To hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the Lord's sound incarnation, and the Bhagavad-Gita is his exact words. What are the other 2? Associating with devotees and deity worship. The deity is also not different from Krishna. So we're so fortunate that we are going to be reading these 4 books: Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion, Sri Ishopanishad, and Bhagavad-Gita, and associating with Srila Prabhupada. That's one great benefit. Another great benefit is we're going to learn the science of Krishna consciousness. How wonderful. The third is that we're going to satisfy Prabhupada, and we will be pleasing him. I just rebooted my computer, so I didn't. One thing I wanted to show you. Well, I'll just paraphrase it again. Well, maybe I'll show it. Hold on. Just give me a second. Okay. Yeah, so just to give you an idea, now this was written in 1968, a letter to Hansa Rupa Prabhu, Hansa Duda Prabhu. And he said, next January, there will be an examination on this Bhagavad Gita. Papers will be sent to me by me to all centers, and those securing the minimum passing grade will be given the title Bhakti Shastri. Similarly, another examination will be held on Lord Chaitanya's appearance day in February 1970, and it will be upon Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Those passing will get the title Bhakti Vaibhava. Another examination will be held sometime in 1971 on 4 books: Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and Nectar Devotion. One who will pass this examination will be awarded the title of Bhakti Vedanta. I want that all my spiritual sons and daughters will inherit this title of Bhakti Vedanta, so that the family transcendental diploma will continue through the generations. Those possessing the title of Bhakti Vedanta will be allowed to initiate disciples. Maybe by 1975, all my disciples will be allowed to initiate and increase the number of the generations. This is my program. So later he adjusted the which books fall into which category. But you see here, even early on, Prabhupada was very much wanted us to study his books. So now the in another place he says, and this is in your if you got the student handbook, this is in the student handbook. He says, so the first 4 books for Bhakti Shastri are Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, Ishopanishad, Bhagavad-Gita. And then Bhakti Vaibhava is all of those books plus the first 6 cantos of the Bhagavatam. And then Bhakti Vedanta is all of those previous books plus the final 6 chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then Bhakti Sarvabhauma was all of those plus the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But this one reason that this is a serious course is you live in India. If you tell somebody you are a Bhakti Shastri, that means you're really supposed to know what you're talking about, isn't it? If somebody has that title Shastri, I lived in Vrindavan for 21 years, and if somebody had the title Shastri, like Haridas Shastri was one of the most famous scholars in Vrindavan at that time. So like Shastri is a big deal, at least in the North India where I was living. So we want to take this seriously, to study the Bhakti Shastris. Can you imagine having the title Bhakti Shastri? That means you know the Shastras about Bhakti. It's quite a elevated title. So these 4 books that we'll be studying, Bhagavad-Gita, of course, you're all familiar with. 700 verses, and Krishna has included everything there. And then the Ishopanishad, which is really, of all the Upanishads, it's really the one Upanishad that focuses on bhakti and focuses on Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Most of the Upanishads, as you know, have a more Vedantic, Advaitin approach. Well, at least interpretation. We don't interpret them in a Advaitin way, impersonal way, but they're more on the level of Gyan. But Ishopanishad is this wonderful Upanishad that Prabhupada translated very early. And then 2 books by Rupa Goswami, in Sanskrit, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and the Upadekshamrita, and Prabhupada's translation, which is what we'll be studying, the Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction. And we are starting with the Nectar of Instruction. Okay, so the 11 verses, and the whole spectrum of Krishna consciousness is covered in 11 verses. It's amazing. It's an amazing book. The first is just about controlling your senses, a very basic point, and it ends up with Vraj Bhakti, the last verses about the highest realms of bhakti. So it takes us on this amazing journey in only 11 verses. So that's what we chose as the first book that we will be studying. Now there's a lot in the student handbook that you got. We're not going to follow everything in the beginning. That was we wrote that in 2000, in the year 2000, and Rasamandala Prabhu was the main author. He was very, if you look at that, he's very much a mathematician and very, very systematic. But there's some really, really nice things in those introductory pages of that. But the homework that we'll be doing is relatively simple. So your homework assignment is not that hard. It's usually 2 questions. And the devotees who are organizing this will tell you where to email them to and all of that. But it's really not hard. And neither is there a lot of reading. I'm doing a course right now with some devotee scholars on Gaudiya Vaishnav history. And it's like having to read 2 or 3 books a week. This is like having to read 5 or 10 pages a week. So it's really not that challenging a homework, okay? By the way, your homework for the first week, I'm making it a little longer than usual. Read the preface and the first verse of the Nectar of Instruction, okay? Preface and the first verse. It's a half hour of reading it, probably at the most, okay? So we're going to be associating with Srila Prabhupada through his purports. We'll be associating with Srila Rupa Goswami through his writings. We're so fortunate to have their association, and we really are associating with them. In the first canto of the Bhagavatam, after Narada Muni appears in the pages, Prabhupada says, "We are so grateful to Narada Muni for kindly appearing on the pages of the Bhagavatam and giving us his association." So Prabhupada saw it as like direct Sangha. So we're going to be associating with Srila Rupa Goswami, associating with Srila Prabhupada as we're doing this homework. Now, like I said, I rebooted my computer. So let me, there's one point I just to give you an idea of how deep the study of Shastra is. I'm going to just, if you have your book, it's on page, I'm looking at page 17 right now, and I'm going to share my screen if you don't have the book with you. Okay, so when we were working on this, we had some of the top devotee scholars and yeah, in the society working on this when we wrote this in the year 2000. And we came up with these 12 aims that we would like to keep in mind as we are studying. The first one is the simplest one, to memorize and be able to recall theoretical knowledge, which forms the foundation of our ongoing progress in Krishna consciousness. And I have no doubt at all that you'll be great at that, because my wife was a school principal in India for 20 years, and we had an ICSE curriculum. You're familiar with that in South India? And so much memorization. And I'm sure when you all went to school, there's so much memorization. So I'm not worried at all that you're going to do great with the first. When my son went to, well, the Gurukul in Vrindavan was ICSE school, so he studied that. He was born in Vrindavan and studied there for all 10 plus 2. And so when he came to America and went to university, he said, "Pitta, it's so easy in America. You know, university in America is like 9th standard in India." He said, "So I'm not worried about your memorization abilities." But that's just the first of the 12 aims. The second one is to deepen our understanding of the Krishna conscious theology, the philosophy, particularly through studying it from a wide range of perspectives and through developing thoughtfulness and introspection. So as we're talking in the classes, we want to look at things from a different angles of vision. Prabhupada said to do that. He said to study his purports threadbare, he said, from different angles of vision, okay? And I'll be asking you questions that aren't just memorization, but will make us be thoughtful and think, okay? Then number 3, to help students apply the philosophy. So in our external practices and our internal development. Okay, so it's 2, right? We know our external practices and our internal development, and develop appropriate Vaishnava qualities and behavior. And then to enhance our desire and ability to preach effectively. This is an important point. One time, Prabhupada said that his only criticism of his disciples, anyone know what it is? What he said, his only criticism of his disciples? Subandhu Krishna, you look like you know.
No, I don't know.
Yes, you know Prabhu?
No, I'm not aware of.
Acha, okay. He said that my only criticism of my disciples is they think my books are for distribution only and not for reading. And then he did a little role play, a little drama. And he first played the role of a devotee and said, "My dear sir, you please take this book." And then he imitated the gentleman who said, "What's the book about?" And then Prabhupada imitated the devotee, says, "I don't know what the book's about. I only distribute it. I don't read it." So this will increase our desire to have other people get these wonderful literatures by appreciating them ourselves. Okay, so that's number 4. Number 5 is to help build and maintain our faith and our conviction in 2 things: the process of Krishna consciousness and the Shastra as our foundation. So as we're reading and we become more convinced, we read something, we talk about it in class, then we apply it in our life for the next week. And so the Gyan becomes Vigyan. It becomes realized knowledge. And number 6, to simultaneously cultivate within us, this is very interesting, right? A wholehearted acceptance of the authority of Shastra and a mood of open and honest inquiry and a desire to factually understand and realize it. So there's nothing wrong with having doubts. Prabhupada writes in the 3rd or the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam that doubts are a sign of intelligence. Okay. He does go on to say that doubting the proper source is not favorable. But what I find is one of the keys to making good advancement in Krishna consciousness, or one of the factors in it, is how we deal with doubts. Do we just try to sweep them under the mat and hope they go away? Or do we address them? Do we ask a more advanced devotee or a senior devotee like that? Or do we look up in other things that Prabhupada said about these things? So I will be very happy if you put in the chat or go off of mute and ask questions that are of the nature of doubts. I will not be upset at even in the least, because it means that you're being honest with yourself. You're willing to say them in front of others. And believe me, if you bring it up, there's 10 other devotees in the class who have the same doubt. But they're just afraid to go off of mute or put it in the chat. So please so we want to, on one hand, fully accept, and on the other hand, be open to airing out our doubts and seeing if we can clarify them. Okay, so let's go back and cover some more. Where are we? Okay, number 7. To help create learned Vaishnava theologians, Vaishnava scholars who are expert in assisting the society, means both ISKCON and the greater society, through application of Shastric knowledge in a wide range of personal, social, moral, topical, and theological issues. So, we should be able, if somebody says, "Oh, should we take the vaccine or not?" We should be able to give a we should be able to relate to, somehow to Krishna consciousness, the different topics that are in people's minds and in the greater society, and be able to apply the knowledge that we study to the everyday lives of people in the world. That will make them feel that Krishna consciousness is relevant, and it's very easy for them then to become devotees. Number 8, to develop our analytical, interpretive and evaluative skills, particularly in respect of the practical application of Shastric knowledge. So it's very connected to number 7. We analyze how do I apply this today, right? If the verse says that Vanaprastha should wear tree bark, for example. So how do we, what does that mean in the modern context? Are we gonna, are we gonna walk around with tree bark? It's probably, a little challenging to do that in Bangalore. Maybe the police will come and arrest you or something. So there's different things that were, from Shastra from thousands of years ago, and how do we apply it today? Okay. And then 9, to facilitate devotees in A, understanding and appreciating the mood and mission of Srila Prabhupada, and then B, perpetuating that understanding within the society and its members. So there, in the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, there have been different ways to apply the principles of Gaudiya Vaishnava Krishna consciousness, in our lives. And Prabhupada, our Acharya, had a specific kind of mood and mission. And we want to follow in his footsteps and develop that same kind of mood and mission. That mood and mission comes out very much in his Bhaktivedanta purports. So we'll be talking about this also in our sessions. We'll find passages where Prabhupada really brings out his transcendental personality and his view of the world, and appreciate that and try to apply it in our own lives. Okay, so a few more. Number 10, to ensure that should say there should be 2 E's, devotees develop moral and academic integrity in the interpretation, evaluation, and application of Shastric knowledge. Okay, so what this means is sometimes, let me give you an example. When I was a child, during the holidays, in living in America at Christmas time, people would sometimes give us chocolates, okay? And these chocolates, I don't know how to explain it, but they come in like, you open the box and they're there, and they're in little cups. And there's 2 kinds. There's milk chocolate and there's dark chocolate, okay? And there may be, like 15 or 20 of them in a box, kind of like the way chess pieces would be put, right? And you can see which ones are milk chocolate and which ones are dark chocolate. And my brother and I both liked the milk chocolate and we didn't like the dark chocolate, okay? So after a few days, you would see that all the milk chocolates were gone and all the dark chocolate was there because we picked what we liked. So sometimes we also, in a somewhat dishonest way, we pick the Prabhupada quotes that we like, and we kind of ignore the ones that we don't like, or we do that with Shastra in general. So integrity means to look at everything Prabhupada said on a topic and be much more sattvic and not try to have the Shastra conform to our worldview, but to be willing to change our way of seeing the world when we put on the Shastra chakshus, a different way of seeing the world. Yeah? Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So we don't want to pick and choose what we like from the Shastra. We want to be open to let the Shastra purify us. And sometimes that happens in ISKCON when there's different debates about things. People are only quoting the quotes that they like. And then the other person quotes the quotes that they like. and people aren't looking at just the whole picture. So we want to train devotees in this class to have a much more sattvic. Or if you studied the Bhagavad Gita before, chapter 10, verse 32, the verse says that Krishna is Vada. Vada means the conclusive truth. And in the purport, Prabhupada says we don't want jalpa and vitanda, which is different dishonest ways of trying to come to a conclusion. So we want to, or another way to look at it is a more sattvic, mode of goodness way. Two more. Number 11, to encourage students to take responsibility for their learning and develop healthy study habits by enhancing their desire to study Srila Prabhupada's books, particularly by nurturing their appreciation of Shastra and Shastric study, and by demonstrating Shastra's relevance in everyday life, and equipping them with the appropriate learning skills. And finally, to equip students with the ability to see through the eyes of Shastra and with a Krishna-conscious worldview, ultimately to assist the students in realizing scripture and in seeing Krishna at all times and in all places. How's that for an aspiration? To see Krishna everywhere after you study the Bhakti Shastri. So what comments or questions do you have so far or on any of those 12 items that we discussed?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, then Vismanam. This is Prem Data Chetan Das Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
I have one.
A little louder?
Is it better now, Prabhu?
Tora, yeah.
Okay. Let me see if I can do something. Is it better now?
You just seem to have a very soothing voice.
Oh, okay.
And at 8 o'clock at night, I might go, it's so soothing.
So this question is regarding, Prabhu, you have told that, different Prabhupada quotes are interpreted in different situations. But
yes.
But they have been quoted in different context in a particular point of time. And now they have been assimilated together as a reference for all of us. So without knowing the context, how do we understand? Because some of those may be a little bit controversial in terms of different people may look at those quotes in a different way. So how should we understand that, Prabhuji?
That is a good question. It's an excellent question. And when possible, it's good to know what the context is. And when not possible, then at least we try to look at the Siddhanta, the overall understanding of Shastra. Just like, for example, in chapter 2, verse 31 to 37 of the Gita. Okay, Krishna is talking to Arjuna, and he's saying that people will criticize you, Arjuna. They'll speak ill of you if you run away from this battlefield. They'll make fun of you, and for one who's been honored, dishonor is worse than death. So we might read that and say, huh? What? Wait a second. I thought Trinada Pisuniche Natorora. We're supposed to, we're not supposed to want honor, right? This doesn't make any sense. Krishna is contradicting what Lord Chaitanya said in the Shikshastakam, right? We might think like that. So we have to know the context of Krishna's preaching in those 7 or 8 verses in the 2nd chapter. And without getting into detail, Krishna is telling him, well, I just told you you're not your body. I just told you you're a soul, najayate, mriyate, vakadachin, etc. But if you think you're your body, you should still fight and do your duty. If you think if you're basically in Maya, in the material concept of life, and you think you're a Kshatriya, you should still fight. So he was, so in other words, we needed to know the context that Krishna was taking Arjuna through different arguments. He was kind of almost like if anyone ever played chess, he was like checkmating Arjuna, in every different way. But without thinking about the context, we might think this is, are those doubts that we talked about before? They may arise in our mind. Why is Krishna saying for one who's been honored, dishonor is worse than death? I thought we're supposed to be humbler than a blade of grass. That's just one example. So we do want to look at context, especially in terms of Shastra. Is that all right, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Sabti, very good. Other questions or comments? That's a very good question. And we'll be talking more about this during the classes. Have I scared anyone?
Chat, Prabhu. There is a question by Shamkun Prabhu in chat, Prabhuji.
In the chat. Oh, thank you. All right, let me see. Okay, Shamkun Prabhu. Is there a compiled list of most of the mood and mission of Srila Prabhupada as expressed in his books, letters, and personal dealings, so that we go through the course, we can map a purport? I've never seen that, Shamkun Prabhu, but I think you will naturally get some inspiration about that as we are studying. I'm just trying to think. I was just reading something the other day. Well, here's an example. I'll just give you one example of one thing about Srila Prabhupada was he had this absolute faith in the power of the holy name. So I noticed this very strongly in, I was teaching the Bhagavad-Gita the other day. So here's just as an example about one part of his mood and mission was just his unbelievable faith in the holy name. So I don't know if you can see this, but remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul who has not practiced Krishna consciousness and devotional service. Therefore, one should practice Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life. If one wants to achieve success at the end of life, the process of remembering Krishna is essential. Therefore, one should constantly, incessantly chant the Maha Mantra. So that's just one little idea of Prabhupada's mood about and mission about spreading the chanting of the holy names. And there's I'm teaching a few Bhakti Shastri classes and a Bhakti by Baba class. We're on the 6th canto right now. I'm just trying to think. Well, actually, this verse that we just did actually earlier in the purport is a good example because not this. I'm teaching so many classes I don't remember. This verse. Famous verse, Yesham Tantikata Papam Jananam Punya Karmanam Tedvanda Mohanir Mukta Bhajante Mam Dridabrata. So the verse says that one who has acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are free from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. So one would say, how do you become pious or impious? I had, like myself, I don't think I had any piety before. So how am I ever going to make it in Krishna consciousness? And so Prabhupada, following the previous acharyas in his purport, it's all about sadhu sangha. This elevation is possible in Krishna consciousness in the association of pure devotees. For the association of pure devotees can be delivered from delusion. So Prabhupada and the rest of the purport, it's all about sadhu sangha. So that was like his mood. He came to America and then to the whole world, basically to give us his association. And that's how Krishna consciousness spread. So I think as we, to answer your question, Shamkun Prabhu, we will come upon so many opportunities to talk about Prabhupada's mood and mission as we're studying, because I hope that's okay. And then Murari Madhava Prabhu says, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, as a teacher, what are the prerequisites for a student attending this particular study program? prerequisites in the sense of scriptures, practice, level of knowledge, devotion, overall Vaishnava behavior. That's I'm leaving that up to the organizers of this particular Bhakti Shastri. Generally, it's for people who are initiated, but we make exceptions. Generally, it's good to have some basic grasp of Krishna conscious philosophy, not to be, just brand new. And again, we might make some exceptions to that. But really, the main adhikar eligibility is to attend every week, to do the homework sincerely, to come to the class. Yeah, they'll come to classes, and to really sit down with the Shastra and let it bathe our consciousness, purify our consciousness, and hear it. So I tend not to make too many distinctions about that, because the power of the Shastra is such that just like Sanatana Goswami glorifies the Srimad Bhagavatam, he says, "O giver of saintliness to the unsaintly." Isn't that a beautiful statement? Giver of saintliness to the unsaintly. So I think Rupa Goswami will do that for us, and certainly Krishna with his own words in the Bhagavad-Gita. So I'm not sure what, maybe that's a better question for Achyut Prabhu to say, because I'm here to do whatever I'm told and just teach the Shastra. So maybe he could answer that at another time.
Yeah.
But unless he wants to answer it now. But otherwise, I'm fine with whoever's here. Yeah, is that all right with you, Achyut Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu, perfectly fine, Prabhu. And we've not had too many restrictions, but I think the enthusiasm and the eagerness of the devotees to learn and understand the Shastras is the main criteria. Of course, the sincerity and continuance in the program is much appreciated, because what we hear is the start is really very booming, but then as we progress into the subsequent classes, the numbers drop down because of the kind of commitment they have in terms of homework, essay questions, and whatnot. So I think we should stay the course and make sure we go through this together as a yatra and be successful. Thank
Wonderful. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. And one of my motivations is to get the mercy of Varda Krishna Prabhu and Murli Sham Prabhu, who I consider very, very wonderful Vaishnavas. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, this is Rasa Sindhu Girdhari Das.
Yes. Oh, I bet you're initiated by Jayapataka Maharaj, right? With a long name like that.
Very right, Prabhu. Very right, Prabhu. Yeah. So, Prabhu, my question is relating to the probably 9th or 10th objective that you talked about, picking up the quotations or verses that we like from Prabhupada's literature. My point is very little related with that. How do we adopt that holistic approach in also our engagement and interactions with Vaishnavas overall? We also tend to have similar likings or dislikings for particular Vaishnavas, and within our close group of congregation in temple and the larger community of ISKCON and Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So how do we also adopt that kind of a holistic approach in that?
Well, I hope that in our classes, I'll be showing that by example. Okay. Sometimes I'll say, well, some people bring up these quotes and some people also bring up these quotes, and just by, showing by example that that's a good way to do it. And also encouraging you when you are writing your essays to present things in that way. But I think just by our association, even here we have 57 students right now, so they're going to have different views. And so sometimes I will facilitate a discussion that people from different views can have it. One of the what I consider one of the most important things for ISKCON's future, have a very bright future, is that when we have different opinions is natural, and it's even healthy. If people didn't have different opinions, it would be like ISKCON's kind of dead and nobody cares anymore, right? So it's good that people, but the key is to have respectful dialogue and look for the Vada. Again, if anyone's interested, chapter 10, verse 32 of the Gita, and looking for the conclusive truth in a dispassionate and respectful way. And that, I think, is the key. So we'll be, Rasa Sindhu Prabhu will be hopefully showing that by example throughout the class. Is that all right?
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, TK. Other question? I know a little Hindi, but I don't know South Indian languages at all. So forgive me if Rasika Mataji?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, I had the first point about, memorizing. I'm a little bad at memorizing because once I read the books, I tend to forget. So please help me so that I can memorize, and memorizing slokas is also difficult for me.
Well, there's only 3 verses that you have to memorize for Nectar of Instruction. Number 1, first, second, and third verse. Vacho Vegam Manasakroda Vegam. We'll talk about that. It's funny, Mataji, when I first memorized that first verse of Nectar of Instruction, probably 1977. I always, when in my earlier career, I would have different tricks on how to memorize things, right? So I remember when it was Udara Pasta Vegam. So that there's lines between the belly and the genitals, and so I used to think Udara Pasta. If you eat too much pasta, you're gonna get agitated. So that was the way I memorized that. Right? Like another verse, there's a verse, a wonderful verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Smartavya Satatam Vishnu, that if always remember Vishnu, Vismartavya Najatu Chet, never forget him. So when I was first memorized, Smartavya, it was, if you're smart, you'll remember Vishnu. So Smartavya. So there may be some different tricks that we can think of to help us memorize them, but you don't have to get the diacritics exactly right. The idea is to be able to write down the Sanskrit and a general understanding of the English. It doesn't have to be word for word, but a general understanding of the English. The idea being that if we're going to have this title Shastri, and we're out in public, we should be able to quote a few verses to show that we know what we're talking about. I hope that's not discouraging for you, Mataji. I'm sure you can do it. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana payupasate tesham nitya bijuktanam yoga shema mahamyam. Krishna says that he preserves what you have and he carries what you lack. I know you can do it. If I could do it, I never spoke, I didn't know Hindi. I didn't know anything. I was just a kid from New York and I could learn things, someone from Bharata Bhumi can definitely memorize a few verses. Is that all right, Mataji?
Thank
you. You can do it.
Mataji still seems to be apprehensive, but I think that's a question which many of us in this session would have, Prabhu, but I think you've given a lot of tips to begin with. So I think
you do your best. And even if you don't get a 100% score on the verses, you can still pass the exam. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. But Krishna will help us. I never thought I could memorize anything. I used to, this was before, obviously way before cell phones. I used to write down the verses on a little card, and just wherever I was, if I was, buying something at the market and I was waiting online, I'd take out the card and recite some shlokas, or, just different times of the day like that. So it's possible, but if it's really a struggle, then at least try to memorize English. Like that. Okay, other questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, this is Navadeep Sachidevi Dasi.
Yes,
Dhanavad
Mataji.
pranams. Prabhuji, I had a question in relation to point 4, which says that enhance devotees' desire and ability to preach effectively. For preachers who are new to this process and who have just started this journey, how would we go about measuring our effectiveness?
Because we preach from our realization. Prabhupada said that. And if talking about Prabhupada's mood and mission, that question was asked before. He didn't tell us we had to study for 10 years and then go out and preach. He sent us out almost like, day 2 in the old days, right? You come to the movement one day, day 2, could you go out on Sankirtan, or something like that. So, but he said, Prabhupada said that you speak your realization. So I'll give you an example. And I'm just looking at the time because there are a few other things I want to cover, but these are such good questions. I was once in our San Diego temple, and what we would do at the Sunday program is myself and Gunagrahi Maharaj, we would look around the room to see who are really key people that we want to sit down with at prasadam and preach to, right? And we saw this university professor was there. We recognized who he was. So I was assigned to go speak to him. So after the kirtan was over, people sat down at prasadam, but then this new bhakta, brand new bhakta, like 2 weeks in the ashram, sat next to the professor before I could sit there. So I was a little nervous. Too bad. But I was listening to the conversation. So the professor said, "So nice to meet you, young man, and tell me something about Krishna consciousness." And so the brand new bhakta said, I don't know that much about Krishna. I've only been here 2 weeks, but I can tell you that the devotees are very nice and the prasadam is out of this world. And so I spoke to the professor afterwards, and he really appreciated what that devotee said. He didn't quote any verses, he was so new, but he was speaking his realization, and that had power. That was his realization. So by reading Srila Prabhupada's books in the association of devotees, by the way, that's very important. It's very powerful in the association of devotees to do this. We will be getting more realizations. And then what we want to do is we want to share those. We may share that with our spouse. We may share it with our children. We may share it with our neighbor. We may, share it out on book distribution or whatever, whichever way we can. But when the Chaitanya Charitamrita says, the more that you give love of God, the more you get. So that's the principle. We will Navadvip Sachi Mataji will get so many wonderful realizations in the course of the association of all these wonderful Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. And then you just share those realizations with others. It's actually a really simple process. So simple. During the pandemic, and it's much worse in America than it is in India. So I've been in this house for almost a year now. But if I read something or get some realization, I go to the next room, I talk to my wife about it, or I call up my son, and somehow or other I find a way to share it. Is that all right, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhu, thank you so much. Excellent response. Thank you.
Okay, so I just want to go through your student handbook a little bit.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes?
Prabhu, I am Sadhan Keshavdas. I just want to know what should be our prayer today as your lotus feet and Guru and Krishna, so that we can successfully complete this course.
What should be our what, Prabhu?
What should be our prayers at your lotus feet and Guru and Krishna?
Well, I'm looking at my feet right now, and they don't look very lotus-like. No, I don't think
That we can complete our course.
I don't think they apply to me. But probably the nicest prayers are the Mangalacharana as given in the Bhagavad-Gita. It's so nice. Om Jnana-Timirandasya, and then Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam, and then Vandeham Shri Guru, and then the prayers to Krishna, the prayer to Radharani, the prayer to the Vaishnavas. We don't have to get real fancy. Those prayers are that was Prabhupada's in Mangalacharana, which is usually, as you'll see when we're studying, we will we'll go through those every day at the beginning of the class. Okay? And of course, we can pray in our own language. My dear Guru Maharaj, my dear Srila Prabhupada, my dear, the residing deities at your temple are?
Gandharvika Giridhari and Sri Lakshmi Narasimhadev.
What was it? Gandharvika Giridhari?
Yes.
Yeah. So my dear Shishi Gandharvika Giridhari, please help me understand and gain some real transcendental knowledge by studying Prabhupada's books. Something like that is also nice. The good thing about Krishna is he speaks all languages. So you can say, what is the main local language in Bangalore?
Kannada.
Kannada.
Kannada. So Krishna knows Kannada. Yeah. So no problem. He studied it in Gurukul. Okay, so let us go to this, and I'm sorry to make you dizzy here, but I'm going up to page 63. I just want to show you a little bit of, whoops, that's 75. Okay, 63. I'm going too fast, sorry. 54, 55, 59, 60, 61, 62. Okay, so this gives you on page 63, you get an overview of the Nectar of Instruction. Now, if you're not familiar with those terms on the top, don't worry about that. We'll be studying those terms. But the first 7 verses are about basic sadhana bhakti. The 8th verse is about spontaneous devotion. And then the last 3 verses are about pure love of Godhead. And then this page gives you a little summary of each of the texts that the texts that we will be studying, those 2 verses, okay, those 2 pages. And then on page 67, you'll see here that the 7 themes of Nectar of Instruction are listed, about mind and sense control, about having the right attitude, about the guru-disciple relationship, about ISKCON's purpose, about sadhu sangha, about devotees, and about bhakti. Just as a little reference for you. And then on page 92 of your book, which is right near the end, so I can, page 92, has the homework assignments. Very simple. Who is Rupa Goswami? Which are the most exalted of Krishna's pastimes? How can we understand them? So just, you don't have to write a book about, 1 or 2 sentences is sufficient. It's just really to, these are key things that are brought up. And so you understand, all right? I want to be very clear. It's torture for you and torture for the graders if you write a long explanation. These are really simple questions. Define the word Goswami. What are the 3 bodily urges? Things like that. Okay? So answer those in the simplest of ways. And so the homework assignment for next week, like I said, is to read the preface and the first verse. And we'll be going over those in class. And that's, and then after the class, you should submit. So you can, how to do this. No, the questions are so simple. So it would be really good if you can submit the answers to your to those questions. This is the only time I'm going to be covering 2, both the preface and the first verse. After that, it becomes just 1. Okay, but I'm giving you a little extra assignment this week. Don't get discouraged by it, but have those homeworks done by this time next week. So it's only reading like 5 or 7 pages and answering a few questions. Very, very simple. Okay. Any questions on that? I'm not asking you to give a detailed analysis of Achintya Beta, Beta Tattva, or something like that, or, and how that relates to Ramanujacharya and Sankaracharya's explanations. This is really much more straightforward and easy. So there is a little time for more questions or comments if you have.
Achyuta Prabhu, can you spotlight Vraj Vihari Prabhu? He is not spotlighted.
Hare Krishna
Spotlight,
Murli.
Prabhu. Hare Krishna Murli Prabhu. He's on the spotlight.
Yeah, he is spotlighted, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna Murli Prabhu. So nice to have your association.
Sorry,
We're
bro. I came late because of my chanting session.
No, we're very fortunate to have Sadhu Sangha.
No, nothing like that.
I was telling the devotees that my main inspiration for doing this is to get the mercy of Varda Krishna Prabhu and Murli Sham Prabhu.
Nothing like that. We are so fortunate that we are having association of such a senior devotee. So it was a dream come true today that Lakshmi Narasimha Giridhari congregation all come together and sit in a place and we are doing Bhakti Shastri. It was a long dream which was pending. I think it was just waiting for you to come here and manifest. Through you, it wanted to manifest. Really, Giridhari will be very, very blessed if we all sit together and learn. I hope so. All the announcements are done. Achyuta Prabhu, have we announced about the strictness and everything?
Yeah, yes, Prabhu, in terms of what is the expectation, Vraj Vihari Prabhu has explained, and what is the kind of mode we have to approach to this course, and the sustenance of making sure that we stay the course throughout the journey and ensure that we learn Srila Prabhupada books and also associate with the books and provide our best abilities. So Prabhu has also given us some tips in terms of how we can memorize some shlokas and so on and so forth. So it's quite wonderful.
But coming to the technicalities, so I want some second level devotee who will take daily attendance, and then there will be WhatsApp group formed only for participants. Somebody is absent for continuous 2-3 days, then we'll throw you out of the course. We want to be a little strict, because if little will we relax, then you are not going to take it seriously. It is not about money. Just because you paid money, that will not be allowed in the course. Yes, you will be removed from we'll block you so that you cannot enter the Zoom. So like that, we want to be a little strict, and time also very strict. If you come a little late, we'll lock the meeting room so you cannot enter the course. Zoom will be locked after some time. and you will not be able to enter inside. So we are going to be a little strict, and I want some devotees who can take up that service of attendance and putting in the who are absent, and third day then just block it, all those things. So Achyuta Prabhu, so how many devotees you need?
Probably 4 or 5 devotees. We can form one core group or representative from each of the chakras, and we can assign each of them one kind of seva, so that we can work this out. So just on the timing part of it, I just want to include one more important point. It is very, very important to be respectful of each one's time, and especially His Grace Vihari Prabhu's time, because the time for Prabhu in Washington, D.C., when we start this class at 6 a.m. here in India, it is 7:30 p.m. in Washington, D.C. And sort of, if it is a 1.5 hour course, it sort of stretches till 9 p.m. So we want to be extremely respectful of that and make sure that we don't stretch too much time for Prabhu for his rest time and things like that. So let us be absolutely punctual. If you're able to log in 5 minutes earlier to 6 a.m., that's fine. But we got to be extremely mindful of that. That's one major request from my side to all the devotees participating in this.
So can some 4 devotees volunteer for this some services? We'll discuss offline what is the exact services. So what, some few messages in the group, and then follow with who did not do assignments and little bit helping all those things. And one Mataji will be nice, minimum.
So I can take one service. I can take. You can decide whichever, later we can discuss.
Yes, bro. Rasundu is one. Second. Second. Thank you, Rasundu, bro. I hope so. That is, we'll give you a Zoom service to switch on the Zoom by 5:50 so that you'll be the first person and you cannot miss.
Sure, Prabhu.
Somebody else?
Prabhu, I can assign one from my circle. Prabhu.
Yeah, Sarvapan will give one person from his circle. Then 2 more devotees. We can review the service after 2 months so that we can alternate.
Mathurapati Prabhu, can we request somebody from your circle, Prabhu?
Yeah, I will update you, Prabhu. This we can discuss offline. So I think we can hear more from His Grace Vihari.
Okay.
One more devotee I need, Prabhu, so that we'll start the service from tomorrow.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This is Varakar from Adas. Prabhu, you can take my name.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry for disturbing your class, Prabhu. Nectar, I came and
no disturbance. You're making it successful.
I gave a little poison in between.
I like your attitude. I have to learn from you because I'm a little bit, no, it's okay, it's okay. And he was like, nope, 3 classes, we block you. I love it.
No, we want to be strict because we are a little relaxed in learning. Even I am, including me. So we want to be very strict, and it is only for serious people. We are not here for numbers. We are here for only serious people, and that's why we have kept it so slow, weekly once. And that you cannot make it, and we have to go out of the course. That's all. Let it be 10 people. We don't bother.
And we'll be doubling. We'll be testing sincerity next week because we're actually giving double homework than we usually give for the first week because we're going to do the preface and verse number 1.
Okay, thank you. So Achyuta, I can remove my spotlight and let it go.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, so any last question? I did tell them, Murlishan Prabhu, that we might end early today because this was just an introduction to the course. But other questions or comments?
Prabhu, maybe a comment from my side, not a question. If it would have been a live class where we would have been interacting with each other physically, so we would have got an opportunity to know each other. I know there are 57 people on the 60 people now, 59 people on the Zoom now. And maybe we know each other by faces and names because we have been interacting in temple at different levels. So I don't know, maybe 20 minutes may be too short to have a quick introduction for everybody. because we may not be knowing each other as well personally. If there is a way of connecting and knowing each other who is in the session, would also be helpful for us.
I like that idea, Rasa Sindhu Prabhu. I think you're right that it wouldn't be a very meaningful introduction if we try to do it in 19 minutes, like, you know, hi, my name is Vraj Vihari, I'm from Washington, D.C. Next one, my name is, Rasa Sindhu, and I'm from, whatever. I think we will get to know each other over the course of time, because I will sometimes be using breakout groups. And when we do breakout groups, if you're in a smaller group of 6 or 8 people, you get to know them for a few minutes, and then next week we mix it up. So I very much like your point, and you're a very good observation that there's 58 of us, so it's not easy to do that. But I think as the time goes on, and especially if we use some groups, and also people, a variety of devotees ask questions, and do remember my request. I mean, I don't know how, I know it may not be the culture here. My request is that starting next week, we are all on video. And then you get to see people. Now, if again, I'm allowing, unless Murli Shampoo, so I'm allowing if for some reason you can't do it, or you're on a phone or whatever, or you have a weak internet connection, that's okay. But as much as possible, it's good to have people on video. It enlivens the speaker. That's the point. If you're just looking at boxes with names on it, or a picture of Radha and Krishna, or a picture of Jaipataka Maharaj, or whatever, people have different pictures, or husband and wife, or whatever. It's not as nice as if you're actually seeing the students. So please be merciful to me. And starting next week, as much as possible, be on video. Is that okay for you, Rasa Sindhu Prabhu?
Sure, Prabhu, yes.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Okay, then I think we are good now. We're so lucky, because now, I normally would have said, does everyone have a copy of the Nectar of Instruction? But it's on the internet. It's probably on your phone. It's probably everywhere. We will be using, of course, as you know, all English books. Even if the book has been translated into Canada, I request us to all read the books in English. Okay, and we'll start by having the direct association of Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Prabhupada next week, and that is significant. That second prayer in Mangalacharan of Sri Chaitanya Mano Abhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. He actually understood Sri Chaitanya Mano. He understood the mind of Lord Chaitanya, and so he was empowered. It's mentioned in several places. At one place, Lord Chaitanya asked the different devotees to bless Rupa and Sanatan. And then later, Lord Chaitanya, Rupa Goswami wrote a verse and set it up on the roof of a house. And Lord Chaitanya saw it later, and he said to the devotees, how does he know my mind? How does he know my mind? So this is not just your average acharya. This is Srila Rupa Goswami in 11 verses only, explaining the entire philosophy of Krishna consciousness. It's quite amazing. Sarva Pavana Nityananda Prabhu says, are we expected to maintain some personal notes, or will there be any? Well, the study materials we've given you. I think Achyuta Prabhu, have they all received the workbook? Yeah.
Yeah, we have it, Prabhu.
Okay, so that will be your main guide. We will also be distributing. Okay, the main guide is the handbook, but we'll also be distributing a workbook which you can fill in, and many of the questions that will be on the exam are covered there. So we'll be distributing that. I guess Achyuta Prabhu will do that, and it's very simple. It's just like fill in the blanks. You'll find it will guide your study nicely. And how do we submit our homeworks? Achyuta Prabhu, do you want to tell them, or is that worked out yet, or what?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I will take that offline. There are some logistics which is being worked out, and we'll work with Murli Sham Prabhu and then convey to all the devotees who are participating in this.
Okay, so that answers Govinda Gangapati Prabhu. Excellent. Are there any other thoughts, either in the chat or going off the chat and going off of mute and asking questions? Okay, so anything else from your side, Achyuta or Murli Sham Prabhus?
Nothing, Prabhu. Thank you. Please bless us so that we become serious in Krishna conscious and we use this knowledge for serving Prabhupada. And we hope to see the same numbers till the end of the course.
Acha, okay. Very good.
All right. We are also extremely fortunate to have His Grace Varada Krishna Prabhu joining. He's on a tour to Ahobilam, but is just been able to join us. So I'll request His Grace Varada Krishna Prabhu to speak a few words and also formally welcome His Grace Vihari Prabhu.
So can you highlight him?
Yeah. Varada Krishna Prabhu, can you hear us?
Hare Krishna, can you hear me? Can all of you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Hare Krishna.
Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshtarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langai Tegirim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. At the outset, I would like to express my sincere and heartfelt appreciation to Vraj Bihari Prabhu. It's not some ordinary commitment that he has taken. I'm quite delighted and surprised at this commitment that he has taken. And I want to thank Murli Sham Prabhu for making it happen. Vraj Bihari Prabhu is one of those persons whom I have tracked all my life from the time I got to know him in ISKCON. I have seen him in Vrindavan. I have interacted a few times with him there. Maybe he won't remember. I'm a small devotee. And then when he was, the contribution that he has been making to ISKCON has only been growing over the years. He was heading the VIHE. He was in many strategically important positions in ISKCON, along with Gopal Bhatta, Prabhu. Everybody knew that these are the people who are giving a vision, I would say a strong foundation for ISKCON to be able to grow into the future, face the challenges of the future. When I first heard that he, along with a few more devotees, are looking forward into the future, thinking in terms of a constitution for ISKCON, ISKCON resolve, ISKCON succession, ISKCON strategic planning. What can I say? I felt that somehow or other, by the mercy of Sri Radha Madhav, someone so dedicated and talented and so committed to Prabhupada and this movement has been attracted to this movement. And so I somehow I got this feeling that this senior generation of devotees, second generation devotees, senior ones among them, and also the GBCs, I think they're going way beyond their, I would say, normal call of duty. And for them, ISKCON is everything. ISKCON's future, ISKCON's security. By that we mean, we are only saying that when we say ISKCON, we're not looking at buildings and temples and no, we're looking at devotees. So they're so concerned about the future of the devotees, that devotees should be peaceful, should be happy, should have a strong foundation, good organization, and then so they can peacefully look at preaching related, shall I say, engagements, rather than having to look at things like resolving issues within ISKCON. So here is this generation, and Vraj Bihari Prabhu is definitely up there among the top devotees who has been consistently contributing towards developing that kind of an ecosystem for ISKCON, so that it survives the test of time, test of Maya, test of Kali, and so on. So it's goes without saying that our generation and all future generations of ISKCON should be grateful to devotee leaders like this, who are teaching us how to, and I've also seen, along with a few more devotees like Anuttama Prabhu and others, are looking at the growth of religious organizations in the history of this mankind. I mean, whatever, recorded history, and why some of them worked, why some of them didn't work. What is it that makes religious organizations work? What, like that. They've gone to that extent of studying religious movements in this world and documenting and presenting it. So I've seen some of those seminars, I've attended some of those workshops, and some of those material shared with me, because I also had the privilege of attending the GBC college. So goes without saying, like I said, that we are very, very grateful to Vraj Bihari Prabhu. And he always remains one of those devotees that I deeply admire and look up to in different ways. So I'm more than delighted that Prabhuji has taken up this commitment to walk us through the Nectar of Instruction. I don't know if I'm young enough to be a student, but I'll definitely attend each one of his classes. I just couldn't make it today because, you know what, Ahobilam being what it is. I came back last night at 2 o'clock.
Give us Lord Nishingadev's mercy, please.
Prabhu, we offer a prayer in our temple every day soon after Mangalarti. All the devotees chant this prayer. So in that prayer, we mention the names. We don't actually mention everybody, but we say, kindly protect all ISKCON leaders, wherever they are, in whatever capacity they're leading ISKCON into the future. Kindly protect them. Every day we chant this prayer. So I'm very grateful to you. I would be your student. I am looking forward to being your student, not just in learning Nectar of Instruction, but also so many other things that you have done, and I think you'll continue to do for ISKCON and for Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya's movement. India is the country of hope. I mean, the Prime Minister Modi is talking about this being the generation of the Asian tigers. I really think it is. India is the country with numbers, India is the country with a young population as against the aging populations in the Western nations. India is where things are happening. So it's about time we stepped into the kind of role the world is expecting us to play, not just in spiritualism, but in all areas, I guess. But when it comes to spirituality, the fact of the matter is, we all know there's no looking beyond ISKCON. It's ISKCON and only ISKCON. Yesterday, the last 2 days I was in Ahobilam. You can see that among the Sri Vaishnavas, there's such a noticeable shrinking of numbers of those who are interested or committed to spirituality. They're interested in rituals because it's a question of livelihood, but definitely in terms of genuine religious philosophy or spirituality, they're somehow that spirit has gone. I don't want to offend them, but the fact is that spirit is gone. So if there's anything surviving in this world, which is bringing vibrancy, vigor, enthusiasm, and a new hope into spirituality, it is ISKCON. And so we are very, very indebted to you. Prabhupada wanted every one of us to be sharp, intelligent, well-educated. In other words, he said Vipra. Prabhupada wanted us to be Vipra. That's not going to happen accidentally. It's going to happen through systematic, disciplined approach and work. And thank you, Prabhu. I look forward to listening to your classes and maybe once in a while interact with you where you talk about ISKCON, its future, responsibility of the current generation, the challenges we are facing.
I look forward to that, Prabhu. And I look forward to the time when we can take prasadam together.
I think it might happen sooner than you think.
Yes, maybe. So Prabhu, I do have to run. And I promised the devotees that we would end on time as we want to start on time. But Hare Krishna, Prabhu, thank you so much for blessing us with your association. We're so happy to serve you and Murli Sham Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. So,
Prabhu, thank you for coordinating. And my humble request to every student, if you miss one class, you're really missing something. That's my humble request. Hare Krishna. May Shri Gandharvika Giridhari, Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, and Shri Lakshmi Nrsingadev bless all of you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone, devotees. We will follow up with a number of points to be noted so that you are prepared for the next week's session. So the homework what Raja Vihari Prabhu has given is read the preface and the first verse of Nectar of Instruction, and we will pick it up from there. We will post this in the group which has been created for the students and convey that message. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Krishna, thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
To all of you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
My
Dandavat pranams to all the devotees.
Dandavat Pranam, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Dandavat Pranam, Hare Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.